Tonight, a horrific mass shooting in Shreveport, Louisiana.
I don't know what people think in the crevices of their mind.
10 people shot, 8 killed, all of them children. Police say the gunman targeting his family.
I'm Jason Allen in Shreveport. The victims here ranging in age from 1 to 12, both at this house and at another one up the street.
In Iowa City, students shot. The gunfire erupting during a wild brawl near the university campus. Also tonight, President Trump warns Iran, no more Mr. Nice Guy. Tensions escalating, shots fired by a U.S. warship in the Strait of Hormuz.
I'm Charlie D'Agata in Tel Aviv. President Trump says U.S. negotiators are headed to Pakistan for new talks to end the war. At the same time, thousands more U.S. troops are headed to this region.
When will gas prices drop? The Energy Secretary today with new details.
That could happen later this year. That might not happen till next year.
I'm Lana Zach in Davenport, Iowa. Ceasefire or not, why farmers planting for spring are warning about a food price spike everywhere.
Weather whiplash. After violent storms tear across several states, millions now set for a spring freeze. All that, plus unexpected landing, the moment this hot air balloon dropped into a California backyard.
Look at that.
That is so cool.
Wow.
The homeowner clearly surprised at the sudden company.
This is the CBS Weekend News from New York with Jerika Duncan.
Good evening and thank you for joining us this Sunday. We began with a community grieving after a mass shooting in Louisiana. 10 people were shot in Shreveport, 8 were killed, all of them children. The gunman also dead. Police say the attacks happened at 2 homes. CBS's Jason Allen is there for us tonight with the details. Jason.
Jerika, good evening. People are still filling this Shreveport neighborhood tonight, emotional and upset over this shooting that happened both at this house behind me and another one just up the road. And police told me in the last hour it was a survivor of the shooting who escaped and called them to tell them about it. Just after 6 o'clock this morning, when police got here, they found 10 people had been shot. 8 of them had been killed. And as you mentioned, all 8 of those were children. Police also confirming for me that at least 7 of those 8 children were the children of the shooter, who they identified as Shamar Elkins. After the shooting, police say that Elkins carjacked someone just down the street, got into a pursuit with police, stopped. They say he produced a handgun and police officers shot him there at the scene. Louisiana State Police tonight are also involved in this investigation.
This is a tragic situation, maybe the worst tragic situation we've ever had in Shreveport.
I don't know what people think in the crevices of their mind to want to harm another human being, let alone that of children who have their whole life ahead of them.
Shreveport police said that they had one previous run-in with Mr. Elkins, but looking back at that history, Jerika, they said there is nothing that would explain anything like what happened here in Shreveport this morning.
Yeah, that community will never be the same. Jason Allen, thank you. To Iowa City now, where a shooting there left 5 people injured, 3 of them University of Iowa students. It happened early this morning near campus when gunfire erupted during a fight. Multiple people were hospitalized, one of them in critical condition. Police have not made any arrests. Now to new tensions in the war with Iran. Tonight, President Trump says a U.S. Navy destroyer has attacked and seized an Iranian-flagged vessel in the Gulf of Oman, which is at the entrance of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this video from the U.S. military showing the interception. Also today, the president warned Iran its critical infrastructure would be destroyed if the regime did not agree to a peace deal. The president adding, no more Mr. Nice Guy. CBS's Charlie D'Agata is in Tel Aviv with the very latest there. Charlie.
Well, good evening. We head into another volatile week in this region, Jerika. At stake, the U.S.-Iran ceasefire about to expire, possible peace talks on the horizon, a fragile ceasefire here between Israel and Lebanon. What that means for Iran's hold on the Strait of Hormuz. However this plays out, we're told more U.S. troops are on the way. New video released by the U.S. military shows forces warning the crew of an Iranian-flagged cargo vessel.
Motor vessel Tosca, vacate your engine room. vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
Then the sound of several rounds fired from the U.S. destroyer, saying U.S. Marines later boarded the vessel, the first to be taken into U.S. custody. The U.S. military blockade south of the strait has turned back more than 24 ships, too. Tonight, officials tell CBS News the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier has rejoined the fight, transiting the Suez Canal to the Red Sea, and surpassing the record for the longest carrier deployment since the Vietnam War. More than 50,000 U.S. troops remain in this region, and thousands more are on the way. The USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier is the centerpiece of the blockade. And a third carrier, the George H.W. Bush, is expected to arrive by the end of the month. Israel and Lebanon entered into a temporary pause in fighting this week. A tentative end to hostilities that left more than 2,200 dead in Lebanon and around 1 million displaced. More than 30 Israelis were also killed in the latest round of fighting. Here in Israel, they're taking advantage of the relative calm, all too aware that it may not last. Is there hope that this ceasefire will last?
Tell the truth, I don't know. I think so.
Noam and Mor Barobko are parents to 2 young boys, now back at school after a 6-week shutdown.
We are really happy. Kids are back. They started to learn again.
With the clock ticking on the 2-week ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, regime officials say that both sides are far from a final peace agreement. But tonight, Jerika, the chief negotiator, said on state television that Iran is hoping for lasting peace.
Charlie D'Agata, thank you. Tonight, Iran state media is denying the country will send negotiators to Pakistan. President Trump has said U.S. negotiators will be there on Monday. CBS's Olivia Rinaldi is at the White House with some new information. Olivia.
Good evening, Jerika. The vice president is expected to lead those talks, but the White House has not said when he will leave.
We're talking to them. And, we're taking a tough stand.
With just days until a ceasefire with Iran is scheduled to end, President Trump told multiple news outlets on Sunday morning that J.D. Vance would not be going. But shortly after, the White House said Vance would in fact lead the talks, along with the president's son-in-law Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff.
The vice president leading shows the level of engagement from the U.S. side, that we are absolutely serious.
On Face the Nation, UN Ambassador Mike Waltz said the U.S. will present the same deal that led to negotiations collapsing last week. Democrat Tim Kaine said Vance's presence adds weight to the negotiation.
Using Witkoff and Kushner doesn't really make sense. Vance or Rubio or Walz is a different matter. They are the kinds of folks who should be doing this.
But questions remain about who from the Iranian side is authorized to make a deal.
Who's in charge?
Well, look, again, the Iranian regime, we've put them in chaos. Any deal that comes out of this will have to absolutely be verifiable and be enforceable.
Jerika, the bottom line is these two countries do not trust each other and haven't for decades. The first marathon round of talks lasted for 21 hours and no deal was reached, signaling there may be many more hours of negotiations ahead to establish a lasting peace deal.
Olivia Rinaldi at the White House, thank you so much. Today, Energy Secretary Chris Wright said gas prices pumped up by the war may not drop below $3 per gallon until next year. Right now, a gallon of regular gas is $4.05. Diesel prices have surged, now averaging $5.61 a gallon. CBS's Lana Zach is in Davenport, Iowa, with more on the fallout over those fuel prices. Lana.
Good evening, Jerika. Farmers and truck drivers here in Iowa and across the country are making tough decisions as this war drags on. And they tell me that the high price of diesel is pushing them to their limit.
Dory Martin is hauling rocks for a construction project in Barlow, Iowa. She owns her own truck. Her business runs on diesel, now up about 50% since the war began.
It's a big thing for the bottom line, obviously.
She now spends $150 a day to fill up.
What was it before the war?
Closer to 100.
Joe Derrick spent $18,000 in December filling his 10,000-gallon fuel barrel with diesel. At today's price, he says that would cost him $40,000. He's one of the millions of farmers in the U.S. who rely on diesel to power their equipment.
How does it feel when you're filling that up and realizing how much it costs?
Well, we don't want to waste any, I'll tell you that.
Especially farming around 5,000 acres. Derrick's gave us a tour of his corn and soybean farm.
You can't lose money year after year after year and keep the business going. And that's the scary part right now.
Energy experts forecast fuel will remain high as long as the flow of oil shipped through the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted.
The longer these high prices last, the more difficult it is, and farmers are going to have to absorb that full price.
This uncertainty adding fuel to the fire that already has these Americans under pressure.
So I have to be a little more cautious about where all my money goes?
Well, if farmers break, why then there's less food for everybody in the world.
Experts warn even if this war ends immediately, that the high prices are likely going to affect farmers into next year's growing season and keep those transportation prices elevated for weeks to come. Jerika?
You got to have lots of patience. Lana, Zach, thank you. Now to the weather. It's been a wicked weekend of cleanup after that outbreak of violent spring storms. At least 53 tornadoes were reported across 7 states on Friday. Now millions are facing a dramatic temperature drop. Let's check in with CBS News meteorologist Andrew Kozak in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Jerika, good evening. You know, with these powerful systems that move out, we replace the warm air with cold air. And this time, it's not just any cold air, it's dramatically cold air coming in not from Canada, but from Alaska. So it's Arctic in nature. And you can see the white and light blue and dark blue color coding spilling teens, 20s, and 30s into areas that had 80s and 90s and even record highs this past week, which is why we have a freeze watch and freeze warning in effect for over 70 million people from Monday into Tuesday. Take a look how cold it's going to be for many areas on Tuesday morning. 33 degrees New York City. It'll feel like 27 in Boston. Philadelphia 23. Cleveland over toward Chicago. Temperatures feeling half or more of what they felt earlier in the week. We're also tonight and into tomorrow tracking fire danger for the southeast and the Midwest once again. The northern plains, the southern plains, dry soil, low humidity, and once again some very gusty winds. And finally tonight we're looking at the Pacific Northwest finally getting some more rain to start the week off in California, Oregon, and Washington.
Andrew Kozak, thank you. Now to something you don't see every day. A family in Temecula, California, north of San Diego, had unexpected visitors drop in, literally, in their backyard this weekend. A hot air balloon carrying about a dozen people had to make an emergency landing. No one was hurt and nothing was damaged. The balloon was soon back in the air, getting out of the backyard. Looks like fun. Still to come, runners versus robots. It happened at a half marathon today. Whose form is better? I'd say not the robots. But first, we head to the West for this story.
I'm Carter Evans in Los Angeles. Why an entire generation may have to rethink its definition of the American dream. That's next on the CBS Weekend News.
Mortgage rates have dipped to a 4-week low, with this being the best time of year to sell a home. Many markets nationwide are fiercely competitive, especially for first-time home buyers. CBS's Carter Evans in Los Angeles joins us with more on the housing challenges. Carter.
Well, good evening, Jerika. You've probably seen a lot of for sale signs recently. That's because we've just had what the real estate industry calls the Goldilocks week for selling a home. After 60 days on the market, LA real estate agent Paula Acuna is betting on mid-April to finally sell this 3-bedroom condo.
That's why we're hosting open house Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
A Realtor.com study suggests this is when pent-up buyer demand from the winter months peaks, with listing views up nearly 17% above average.
I like the way the light comes in.
Yeah.
Danielle and Gary Sabara have been saving for a down payment for years.
Although the interest rates haven't moved a
whole lot. I still think there's a great opportunity for everyday hardworking families like us to get out there.
But first-time homebuyers like the Sabaras are vanishing from the market. They now make up just 21% of all home purchases, the lowest number ever recorded. They're facing record high prices, high interest rates, and stiff competition from baby boomers, who make up 42% of all home buyers.
That does add an additional challenge for people who have already had equity and more capital that they can put up than we do.
Right. Acuna says her buyers are racing to get in before summer prices climb.
They want to lock in a home, move into a home, and within 6 months or later, if rates go down, as we're being hopeful, refinance.
But owning a home doesn't have to be your only path to building wealth.
The more we can detach home ownership from the American dream, the better off we will be. It's great to buy a home when it makes sense, and it's not great to buy a home if you're stretching, can't save for your own retirement, can't pay for your kids' child care.
Is it still the American dream for you to own a home? For us, yes. It's building that legacy, having it for passing down to generation.
Now, even though summer is peak construction season, builder confidence just hit a 7-month low. Jerika, that's mainly because of rising materials costs due to higher fuel prices.
Yeah, got to consider it all. Carter Evans, thank you. Still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, a big surprise for drivers on a road in Washington State. Today in Beijing, a half marathon with a high-tech twist. Look at that. Chinese-made robots joined 12,000 people in the race. No surprise, but many of the machines were much faster than the humans. The winning robot finished the race in 50 minutes, 26 seconds. That is several minutes faster than the men's world record. If I was out there, I think I would have tripped the robot. Well, today, a new space milestone for Blue Origin. The company owned by billionaire Jeff Bezos reused one of its New Glenn rocket launchers for the first time. The booster landed back in the Atlantic Ocean minutes after blastoff, possibly to be used again. The company is playing catch-up to SpaceX, owned by another billionaire, Elon Musk. Well, drivers in Vancouver, Washington had to share the road this weekend. The pilot at the controls of this single-engine Cessna made an emergency landing on State Route 14 following a mechanical problem. Remarkably, no vehicles were hit and no one was injured. Coming up on the CBS Weekend News, it may sound a little nuts. We'll introduce you to a community fostering baby squirrels. But first, a look back at this day in history.
And joyful cheering greeted Prince and Princess.
Comes out led by Commander Bob John.
The trouble between federal agents and that religious cult in Central Texas ended today just as it began, with violence.
Finally, spring can often represent a season of beginnings. And for some newborn squirrels, the first lesson is a hard fall. In tonight's Weekend Journal, CBS's Itai Hod has more on an army of volunteers on a mission to help the small survive.
When a baby squirrel falls from its nest, it takes a small miracle for it to survive. Lucky for them, that's when an angel appears. And that's not just a figure of speech. That's actually her name. Angel Barba is a retired teaching assistant from Lafayette, California. And for the last 7 years, she's been answering a higher calling. A baby squirrel foster mom.
Do you ever feel like you're in a Disney movie?
Oh, yeah, sometimes. There we go.
This season's cast includes 6 babies, barely 3 weeks old. Feeding the brood takes an hour, up to 12 times a day.
Are they smart?
Oh, they're very smart. I've heard they're about the same intelligence as dogs.
This is what's known as peak baby squirrel season, a time when backyard pruning turns cozy nests into ground-level casualties.
Springtime comes around and everyone starts trimming their trees, the nests get cut down.
Peter Flowers runs the hospital at the Lindsay Wildlife Experience just outside San Francisco. He says they've seen 500 babies this season, and while they may seem ubiquitous, native species like the California ground squirrel have been declining for decades.
While the squirrel is not currently an endangered species, they could become one.
For Angel, that means round-the-clock care. The goal is always to let them go so none of these critters are given names. But every now and then, she'll see a squirrel that seems to recognize her.
It was almost like a little nod. You know,
a little thank you?
Yeah, a little thank you, and then they were off.
Because in a world this nutty, it's nice to know that some people are still willing to shell out a little kindness. Itai Had, CBS News, Lafayette, California.
Well, that is the CBS Weekend News for this Sunday. I'm Jerika Duncan in New York. We thank you so much for watching. Have a great week.